Scientologist doctors rationalize the science against what Hubbard says? Well, lots of ways. You can treat spiritual origins of psychosomatic illnesses as a valid concept, or psychosomatic illnesses as a valid concept, and they should be because they're real. People do make themselves, can think themselves into certain kinds of sicknesses, not viruses and not bacteria, right? But you can predispose yourself to illness, and you can think your way into certain conditions. That's a fact. And it is not difficult for a Scientologist doctor to look at what Hubbard says and say, well, sure, there could be spiritual, psychological factors behind certain kinds of illnesses or injuries or accidents. You're depressed, you're traumatized, you're anxious, and so you're not paying attention as clearly, you're not as mindful of your surroundings, and you're going to bump into things, you're going to have accidents, you hurt yourself, you might have a car accident, you could even die, because of these kinds of a lack of mindfulness coming from or stemming from stress or trauma. This is fairly common sense ideas, and are ways that doctors who are Scientologists who understand medicine and stuff are going to look at the pseudo spiritual ideas of Scientology and mesh them and kind of go, okay, well, I think I can make this make some sense. Now, it doesn't make sense because I'm making it sound very reasonable right now, right? Because I'm talking about how cognitive dissonance works in the doctor's head. The fact of the matter is that L. Ron Hubbard doesn't allow for sometimes it's like that. L. Ron Hubbard says it's always like that. Every accident, every illness, every injury you have is directly due to a PTS condition. But what I'm suggesting here is that a doctor could look at that and water it down a little bit in order to make it acceptable to him and fit in with his other ideas about medicine, surgery, science, etc. Right? That's kind of one way that might work. I certainly talked to doctors when I was in Scientology who were of that kind of mindset. So as far as the science goes, doctors are generally speaking going to go with the science of their profession. But the thing that happens with the Scientology beliefs is they kind of layer over the top of that science, and they influence the way the doctor is going to use or think about the science, right? Because there's always going to be this spiritual component or this psychological component to it, and the idea that there are engrams and accumulated stress and trauma, right? And for the most part, the doctors in Scientology kind of stick with the science of their medicine and their science when they're doing their doctor thing. They kind of also, another thing that I saw happen is a sort of separation of church and state, kind of, right? A little bit of when I'm doing my doctor thing, I'm over here doing that. And when I'm doing my Scientology thing, I'm over here doing that. And I really don't need to mesh these two worlds too much. That's another way that cognitive dissonance can be resolved, is to just kind of mentally separate these things and put them in two different pieces of, two different buckets or containers in your mind and think about them differently that way.